Hey, what's up you guys? Just before we jump into the video, I did want to give you a bit of a disclaimer. This installment of the month in Warframe has had its release date pushed up a bit earlier due to a work trip. Now, there are some really awesome things coming in this week's update, however, I won't be able to cover it in this episode. So don't you go griefing me in the comments. And be assured I will end up covering them in their own respective videos. In addition, I was planning on tossing in a Rob cam for this, however, due to the time constraints, I decided cat cam would work a little bit better. But my cat decided that he felt otherwise, so you're just gonna have to settle for a couple pics of him instead. Enjoy! Hey, what's up you guys? This is Rob from AGayGuyPlays, and today we're going to be taking a look at last month's releases, the patch notes you may have missed, we'll be scouring the dev streams for what's been hashtag confirmed, and I'll be looking to Twitter for who in our community has been DTKilling it on April's installment of the month in Warframe. Alrighty, so April was a bit light on releases with the only new Arsenal additions coming from update 18.8.0, which brought us the Cyber. Now, the Cyber was definitely a refreshing addition to the hammer lineup, as the only thing that was really worth playing with before was the Jacket Tag. While for general use the Jacket Tag still manages to outdamage it, the Cyber does shine in high-end void missions when running with the 4-stack of corrosive projection. Now, I did get a little bit of a tongue lashing for not mentioning the fact that charge attacks have a 50% chance to proc status, but let's face it, on the rare occasion that you do decide to use a charge attack, instead of just smashing away at it with full-on red crits from your body count and blood rush mod setup, you're probably gonna kill it with the bonus damage from the charge shot anyway, so yet another reason not to give a crap about status. This update also brought us the Shikoro helmet for Atlas, which I think is fantastic, because it seems like they're just totally owning the fact that this guy doesn't have a neck. They're like, hey, let's give him the Shredder helmet, but, you know, leave the neck out, and you know what, I kind of love it. We also got the Wukong Dasheng helmet, which I will never use, because it makes him look like some sort of monkey-headed alien. Now, usually, big heads aren't things I complain about, but it does kind of make him look like a cone head, which is a pity because I really like the energy effects coming out of it. Next up was update 18.9.0, which brought us the Banshee Soprana collection. Now, I guess there was a big debate over this skin as she's got a little bit more meat on her bones, which to be honest with you, I personally don't think looks all that much different from the original. And you know what, even if she did get a little bit softer, why should that be any kind of an issue? I mean, I don't see anyone complaining about Hydroid's thick thighs. Regardless, the skin itself isn't half bad. Definitely not my favorite of the bunch, but it's a nice visual upgrade for those who are a bit tired of looking at what I like to think was the nun of Warframe. It also came with a pretty solid skin for the Sonic Core, which is fantastic because, let's face it, it looked like the corpus had slapped it together with Lego bricks. As well as the Beats by Banshee sigil, which admittedly looks pretty good as well, but does kind of make me feel a bit seasick if I look at it for too long. And lastly are the thingies that you're going to be getting from this week's thingy. Now, as you know from the disclaimer, I had to push this video up by 4 days, so unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to cover them in this installment. But don't worry, I will get out a separate video once they drop, or once I get back from my work trip, so stay tuned for that. Now, let's take a look at some of the patch notes you may have missed. Take note that again, April was pretty light when it came to the interesting stuff, so I actually dug into March's patch notes because there were a lot of juicy tidbits worth mentioning there. On the smaller end of the spectrum, Hydroid's Tempest Barrage now displays a preview of its AoE zone if you hold down the ability key before you cast it. Very minor quality of life change, but this does open up opportunities for this option to be available for other powers in the future. Next was a bit of a stealth change to the spawning mechanics that went live in 18.5, but it wasn't mentioned until 18.5.5. If an area is cleared without being alerted, it will not respawn. Now, many of you have already been made aware of this since one of the popular ways to farm focus was to camp out in a deception mission and just keep clearing rooms until your daily focus was maxed out. No big deal though. For those of us who enjoy the stealth focus farm, just hit up an exterminate mission and slash through it like normal. I usually get my day's worth in about 3 to 4 missions if the RNG gods decide to give me enough enemies to kill. Climbing up the ladder of interesting, Cimaris has 2 new mods available in his inventory for 100,000 standing: Health Conversion and Energy Conversion. Now, every time you can pick up a Health Orb, Health Conversion grants you at max rank 450 armor, which stacks up to a maximum of 3 times, for a total of 1,350. Each individual charge is consumed 3 seconds after you take damage, meaning that you have a bit of leeway before each individual stack expires. Now, I've been doing a bit of light playtesting with this one, and it seems like the stacks cannot be consumed until the previous stack has expired. So you'll have at least 9 seconds with 450 base armor if you're running with all 3 stacks. Now, others have playtested this, and apparently it does affect things like Rhino's Iron Skin, Frost's Snow Globe, and Neja's Warding Halo. However, there are really only 2 Warframes that I can see potentially making decent use of this. and that would be Despoiled Necros, note that using Despoiled does not consume a charge, and Reckoning Oberon. However, as with all mod additions, you're gonna have to remove a mod from your current build to slot it in, which may or may not be worth it. Now, energy conversion is a bit simpler as it grants you 50% more power strength to your next ability cast whenever you pick up an energy orb. While this does seem a bit blah at first, keep in mind that triggering a channeled ability will increase that ability's power strength for the entire duration. So think of using this with skills like Excalibur's Exalted Blade, Ember's World on Fire, Valkyr's Hysteria, etc, etc. Now personally, while I do think it is a bit RNG, I can definitely see a couple builds where this might work in place of Transient Fortitude or Intensify. Moving along, there have been recent changes to the resistances and immunities of boss-type enemies to crowd control. Many abilities that ragdoll enemies such as Zephyr's Dive Bomb, Hydroid's Tidal Wave, and Rhino's Charge will no longer have that effect. They've also been made immune to many stuns, freezes, and staggers, and also have had diminishing effects on sleep, the slow on Valkyr's Warcry, and both Nyx's mind control and chaos. Now, most notably, Loki can no longer disarm or confuse boss-type enemies, Avar can no longer pickpocket them with Prowl, Necros can no longer terrify them, and Vauban's Bastille will only slow them instead of trapping them in the light net. Now, this was a pretty extensive list, so I'll leave all of the abilities affected in the description box below. And last up from update 18.5 was a bit of a stealth buff to Scythes. Admittedly, it wasn't super stealthy, but then again we had so many new things to do that while we may have been cognizant of the changes, our focus on it was put a bit on the back burner. So the ones to pay attention to are the Hate and the Reaper Prime. Both of them had their base damage and critical stats buffed, making them great candidates for a body count and blood rush build. Between the two, the Reaper Prime features more base damage and attack speed, while the Hate features a 2.5 critical multiplier. The Aether Reaper also got a bit of a buff, but frankly it still sucks, so it's not worth going into detail about. Now on to update 18.8.0. In this one, they fixed the bug that was causing the dual Toxicist headshot buff to trigger off of elemental status effects. So all of those gas, electric, and blast builds have been deemed ineffective. Like I always say, make sure you're using the appropriate elemental combo in order to deal the optimal amount of damage, instead of trying to game the system because you can't get a headshot. Get good, noob! Now, in 18.8.2, they introduced a new feature that would smooth the transitions in loading screens, join in progress, and relay performance. It's really easy, just go into your game launcher and click to enable the cache optimizer. Now, last but not least is something that I noted from a bunch of different patches this month. It looks like they've been doing a ton of work improving the AI and pathing on Kubros. They're no longer supposed to get stuck behind staircases and will duck if they run in front of you while shooting. There's also a lot of mention about the improvements they've made to the Chessa, so if you haven't revisited yours recently, I'd suggest you check it out and see how you feel about it yourself. Now on to one of my favorite segments, #confirmed. Now, I know that the PAX panel brought us some really juicy stuff, but let's take a quick look at the dev stream from April 1st, which confirmed that both Volt, Mag, and Mesa's Peacemaker rework will be coming before update 19, as well as passives for every single existing frame. Now, both of the reworks look really cool, however, I will hold judgment until they actually go live. I think the one thing that I am most curious about is Volt's new ultimate, its duration, how it'll scale, and how it'll be affected by mods. On the fluffier side, they also showed off some possible new customizations available for the operators. From different hairstyles to new accessories, there was also talk about new faces that would be made available as well. Unfortunately, they had no assets available to share on that one. Now on to PAX East super juicy reveals. First off, Fairy Frame. I am super excited about this one. It's a rare day that I am into a Warframe's base model, as the last few frames didn't really tickle my pickle aesthetically. From Inaros all the way back to Atlas, I felt a bit meh. But damn, this one looks good. Now, they have teased a few abilities from Razor Butterflies to shrinking in size, as well as a passive that allows you to leave clouds of fairy dust. However, I will reserve my opinions on her skill set until she goes live, which should be fairly soon as she's been confirmed to ship with update 19. Now on the subject of frames, our next prime will be Vauban, accompanied by the Fragor Prime and Axtiletto Prime. They dropped that new teaser like it was the motherfucking sun, because that shit was all new levels of hot. Bloodborne meets Pokemon meets Warframe. Vauban was tossing balls left, right, and center, and he looked like a major badass. Which we know he's kinda not, but he sold that shit to us like a Beyonce music video. Now, I'm really excited about his model. That coat of his looks absolutely fantastic. He's sporting tons of clean geometry, which looks super Corpus inspired, and he is decked out in so much gold. In fact, I think this is where all of Saryn Prime's gold embellishments went to instead, like he mugged her ass on the street somewhere. Now, they have set him to become available at the end of spring, which DK looked up for me, and this year happens to fall towards the end of June. So we do have a bit more time before he makes makes his appearance. They also teased a couple other things that, to be honest, we still don't have very much information on. Some weird sentient mech suit with super arms that we're supposed to be able to unlock with focus that, to be honest, still sounds like they're in the middle of developing. As well as Lunaros, the new non-violent sport-based PvP mode. They did make comparisons to Rocket League and stated that it would be movement-based. However, until we actually see some gameplay, I won't be considering this #confirmed. Now, last but not least, we're going to be taking a look at who's been DTKilling it this month. Now, this round, I've only got one color scheme that I want to feature, and that's mainly because I haven't told you guys that this would be a thing. So what I'm going to do every month is feature a couple community-submitted color schemes that I either love to death or are inspiring in some way, shape, or form. Now, the way that I want this submitted is via tweet to @AGayGuyPlays with the hashtag DTKillingIt. Don't leave it in the YouTube comments, don't tell me to check it out in game. The best way to get my eyes on something is via tweet. So thank you very much, Nicholas, and I will see what I can do about getting some plat your way. Well, that draws this installment of the month in Warframe to a close. I hope you guys found that entertaining and informative. As you know, I am still trying to nail down the format, amongst other things. So leave your suggestions for any tweaks in the comments below. Now, if you're interested in more of this, definitely leave a thumbs up and be sure to check out its companion series, Return Fire, where I answer the community's burning Warframe questions. So, until next month, don't forget to do all the things that I ask you to do at the end of every one of these, and as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!